Okay, good morning, Rochester. You're listening to Outside the Echo Chamber on Rochester Free Radio, WRFZ 106.3 FM. It's the Liberty Talk Hour with Kevin Wilson.
And Sean Phelan.
All right, and today we have a guest for our program, our first ever guest. We have a guy who is running for governor of New York as a third-party candidate, as a Libertarian. We have Mr. Larry Sharpe. Larry Sharpe, welcome.
Hey, everybody. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing great. So Larry's
good
on.
Morning.
Yeah, good morning. Larry's on the program today, and if you guys want to, text in to ask Larry questions, we have our text line open, and you can do that at 585-454-9975. You can text into that number, and we will get those text messages and ask Larry questions over the air if you have any. So Larry, we'll start out with why don't you just introduce yourself and tell folks about what your campaign's about.
Oh, that's boring. Anyone who's listening to yours already knows who I am, right? I mean, come on. I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, we've talked about it.
Often, obviously, which is I'm basically a guy from the Bronx who decided that it's time to make a change in upstate New York and in downstate New York to actually make sure that we can support both sides, or both the upstate and downstate parts of New York, to make sure that we can bring people together, to change from a culture away from that of punishment and bribery and always trying to, punish people who do wrong without ever changing a system, and bribe people to stay in the state or bribe companies to come into the state, instead into an environment to where people actually have opportunity, to where they want to stay in our state and not run away as fast as they can, to where the cost of living is actually a cost that people can bear, to where there's opportunity to where people can, become better and not worry about, oh my God, do I want to stay in this state next year? I think we want to change the environment and change the culture to where it's not just about central control is everything and Albany knows everything, but more that we expect and accept that local governments may actually know better, that local people may actually know better, that we can actually create areas in this state to where there's innovation, to where people are actually getting it and making real change, and we can then take advantage of the sharing economy and the sharing environment that we have and share our successes throughout the state.
Let's cut to the chase here, Larry. If you
didn't like my story.
No, I love it.
It's a great story.
Okay, go ahead.
But I was saying, let's just cut to the chase because, I know that, some people just have a limited listening ability, And so if you were governor tomorrow, what would be one of the first things that you would change?
Well, to be forward, no matter who becomes governor, it's not easy to make change, right? No matter what. The difference is if it's an R or a D, there's going to be no change. And we've seen that over the past how many decades, and clearly over the past 7 years. But when I become governor, the difference is I can immediately begin to change the culture right away. I can do things like create two separate offices, which I think are very special. One is the Office of the Repeal, and the other is the Office of the Pardon. When it comes to the Office of the Repeal, it is an actual office where people are going to be there looking at what regulations and rules can be removed, specifically focusing on small business and other regulations that do not have anything to do with safety at all. For example, things like in the vaping industry, why are we limiting how many stores and how many retailers can be in a given area? Why doesn't the consumer decide if they want one in the area or not? These types of regulations and licensing, why do they exist? Walking dogs, braiding hair, things of that sort. I can get it right away and start saying, wait a minute, these things don't make any sense. Let me start to selectively decide which ones I have the resources to enforce and which ones I don't. Those I don't want to start enforcing right now, you know what? If it takes 6 months or a year and no one dies from braiding hair, then maybe we don't require that regulation or license. The problem is all these small business regulations and rules, particularly focusing on those that do not have anything to do with safety and those that are small business, they're just stifling the individual who's trying to get ahead. They're not letting the individual who, say, has a criminal record or has a bad past or has struggled to get a job or maybe was stuck in a job for a long time and now can't get a new job. It stops that person from being their own business owner, whether that's, small hair braiding shop or whether that's opening up some other large, retail someplace. I want to begin to look and see how these are not hurting, and then this gives air cover for the Assembly and for the Senate to actually say, you know what? We should stop this. It makes the regulatory bodies throughout the state go, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Maybe we shouldn't do this. Right now they have fear because what's going to happen is someone's going to braid their hair too tight and sue somebody, or something's going to happen. They're going to say, Governor Sharpe, why did you stop the hair braiding license, whatever the case may be. And when that happens, I won't care. And here's the reason why I won't care. When I become governor, I'm going to be attacked every day by the left and the right and even the press. They're not going to, if anything will unite left and right, it'll be me. They will hate me, and they will go out of their way to try to make me look like a bad guy. I'll be attacked every single day. Someone's going to say, Larry, someone braided their hair? Yeah, someone did. And guess what? Of the 100 people who have now opened up hair salons, one of them got sued for braiding their hair too tight. 99 didn't. I'm okay with that. Yeah. No worries. Right. All good. Let that happen. Let's let New Yorkers want to be a powerful and grow and be entrepreneurs. But not just that. There's also the Office of the Pardon. The Office of the Pardon is an office where we will look at the actual laws that are actually hurting people. Why are they hurting people? Who's in jail? And who can be pardoned? And one of the first people I'll start pardoning is the people who are victims of the SAFE Act. The SAFE Act, I can't believe we still have it. I can't believe it was even passed, but it was. Mm-hmm. And there are a bunch of people, give or take about 1,000 or so, who were unnecessarily had their lives ruined by this act. And we start looking through and seeing who are the nonviolent offenders who've done this, and how fast can I start to pardon them. And I mean that within the first 3 months. Most executives decide to pardon in their last week or two of their term. I want to do that. But it doesn't just go to those of the victims of the SAFE Act. It also goes to victims of, I had marijuana in my pocket. These types of people who've been arrested for simply having a plant in their pocket, again, nonviolent criminals, why in the world would we be putting them in jail? So we're going to start pardoning them also. Now, we're not going to do a massive amount of pardoning right away because the state couldn't handle it. But we'll start to get people out of jail and back into their communities and back into their families. So you might say, but Larry, what happens when someone does something dumb? The same thing's going to happen. If I pardon 100 people who are victims of the SAFE Act or 100 people who have marijuana in their pocket, one of them is going to do something dumb. They're going to rob a liquor store or do something terrible, fight with their spouse or something. They're going to do something bad. I got it. It's going to happen. And when it happens, same thing. Governor Sharpe, you're evil because Bob or Jane robbed the liquor store. Okay, they did. I got it. And they'll go to jail for that. That's an actual crime. So robbing someone or hurting someone is an actual crime. They'll go to jail for that. But they still shouldn't have gone to jail for having a plant in their pocket. That was silly. And on top of that, even though Jane or John did do something bad, again, 99 people got their life back. This country was built on the idea that it would be better for a guilty man to go free than an innocent person to go in jail. And we've decided that doesn't work anymore. I disagree, and I can change that. So that could begin to happen within the first week of being the governor, and that will begin to change the culture. Again, people have said, Larry, I want you to do something right away and make magic happen. I'm not magical. I can't change the state overnight, but I can begin the turn right away.
I don't know.
Someone at an event in Norwich when I was at a anti-SAFE Act asked me, Larry, would you hold every piece of legislature hostage until the SAFE Act is repealed? And I said no. And I said I would not do that because I don't just want the SAFE Act repealed. If we just do that only and I force it, then 2 years later we get SAFE Act 2, which is even worse. I want to make sure that we actually change the culture and that the Senate and the Assembly actually see it's not required. It doesn't make us safer. It's a bad idea. So that not only is it repealed, it never comes back. And when I talked about the Office of Repeal and letting people out of jail, I didn't mean commuting their sentences. I meant full pardons. I meant clear their records. I don't just want to say, here, now you're out, good luck with your life ruined.
Right.
I want to say,
out
and have an actual chance of success.
Exactly. You know, Larry, I agree with like 99.9% of what you just said.
Good, so you can vote for me. Awesome.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have only one problem with what you just said there.
Go ahead.
And that's the fact that I have met you 3 times, and you are partially magical. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's true. A little bit, but just not 100%.
Yeah, you know, when you shook hands with me, I could have sworn I seen some fairy dust in my palm after.
That's great. So did I answer your question? Did I cut to the chase good enough or no?
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, that's you made, you've addressed a serious issue and something that is within the realm of the governorship that, and what your realm of what you're capable of accomplishing. And
the funny thing about governor people don't realize is the strength of the governor is actually the office more than anything else, meaning that the governor can set the tone. This is what modern leadership should be about, and in the most successful companies it is. One time someone asked me, he said, Larry, a libertarian, how do we know they can lead? How do we know they can actually do anything? There's no libertarians who want anything. And I said, there's a great example of it. Every single successful company today is run in a libertarian fashion. It's run in a way that says my local, directors or my vice presidents or my C-suite, my CFO, my CSO is given the freedom to be great. They encourage innovation. They try to get people to be on their own. They don't have a lot of rules and regulations except those that are forced upon them by law. So these people are libertarian. And you like those big companies that are making money? You like those small companies that are exploding? Yeah, they're run by libertarians.
I like to see a lot more small businesses on the corners of streets, and I think with your, removing the restrictions to opening small businesses, I think that would be a really big help. And
absolutely,
especially
and particularly if we can do something like similar to the idea of a farm freedom bill, and we can do this even locally, but for other industries, but specifically for farmers, right? One time, a guy on my radio show called and I said, "Larry, what are you going to do for farmers?" And the first thing I said is, "I'm going to leave your migrant workers alone." So this goes back to the localization, right? People get mad. Well, Larry, what about sanctuary cities? What about this? And my point is, and I'll cover two aspects here. One is the immigration piece, which deals with migrant workers, and then one is back to your regulation piece. When it comes to immigration, we actually don't have an immigration problem, or illegal immigration problem. What we have is an illegal immigration symptom. It's a symptom of two problems. Problem one is labor, and problem two is a broken education system, which they go together. And then that, you add on top of that, the welfare state.
Yeah, I was going to
say the welfare state, which is, you add up the broken labor system because of our education system and the welfare state, that creates illegal immigration. If you end the welfare state and fix the labor problem by fixing our education problem, the illegal immigration problem goes away. So the first thing why I bring it up is when it comes to farmers and many small businesses, they often use migrant workers, and many of them are illegal. If all I do is crack down on the migrant worker and that's all I do, then I've just made things worse. I'm going to make more New Yorkers leave. I'm going to create more of a police state, more people in uniform that are now getting paid for by taxpayer money. Everything's going to get worse. But if I instead try to make things better to where more New Yorkers show up, more stay and come, all of a sudden I don't have a labor problem as much. I can change my education system. The illegal immigration problem goes away on its own. So the first thing is I leave the migrant workers alone. But the second thing I want to do is I want to give them more people to be in New York so they have more customers. But the third thing I want to do is if you simply agree, and I don't mean a detailed, start up New York, terrible plan. I don't mean that where I've got to apply and then there's a panel that decides if you're good or not. No. A simple one-page agreement where you say as a farmer, I'm only going to sell to the best of my knowledge within the borders of New York State. I mean a one-page online form that you simply fill out and you're done. You do that, I want to make it so that every federal regulatory body no longer has any control of you whatsoever. Your only thing you have to do is be transparent. That's it. You let everyone know that you are not following those regulations, those regulatory bodies, and you're good. You are now immune from all of them.
That's a great idea. Was there a Supreme Court case about that?
Go ahead.
So wasn't there a Supreme Court case about that, about farmers, even if they're selling locally? Well, we won't have to dig into the weeds, but that's an interesting one where the federal government is overreaching based on the Commerce Clause, and
that's
saying
exactly
even if you're just selling to your neighbor,
and I want to create a local law, New York State law that says no, see in court, no.
I love it.
If you are only going to sell within New York State, why in the world do you have to pay all the prices, all the fees for being, an international, company that's selling to China? Why are we doing that?
Bingo.
It makes no sense. It only hurts them. You are correct, Kevin, and we need to end that. And that's going to help farmers. But I don't need it for just farmers. We can do that for lots of different industries. If you're going to be selling in New York State to New Yorkers, let New Yorkers decide if they're okay with it. Look, some people want federal approval for everything in their products, and I don't have a problem with that. If that's what you care about, go ahead. Some people don't. How do I know that? Health food stores. Health food stores have been surviving for a long time, and at least 90% of the health food store is not approved by the FDA. Some people think health food stores are crazy, and they only go to Walmart, and good for you. And some people think health food stores are amazing, and they would never go to Walmart. Also, good for you. Let the consumer decide what they would prefer. And the same thing will happen with farmers. Some people would want the federal regulations on all their farm products. Awesome. Buy those products. And some don't care. Great. Buy those too. Let the consumer decide. Let the farmers survive. That's my point.
Yeah. No, that's a great thing. And, well, I know like there's probably a lot of folks like at the local public market down here who probably love some of that. We have a very robust public market in Rochester. And speaking of Rochester, you were here last week. This past week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. What'd you learn while you were here? What'd you think?
Well, the funny thing is, I remember something. I remember meeting a woman, and we were talking about Rochester. And she lived in Rochester for her whole life. And she lives outside of Rochester, I should say, not actually outside. And she said, Larry, the things I like about living in this area is I can wake up in the morning and see a fox in my yard. But then I can drive a half an hour and have a job and work and meet people and then see new things. She said, I love the music scene here in Rochester. And not just that, I can spend just $10 in the summer to see a baseball game and get fireworks.
Yeah.
That's what she told me, and I thought, that's amazing. What a great place to raise your family. What a great place to live. That sounds amazing. And I said, wouldn't you rather have a bit more opportunity in Rochester? And her answer was, yeah, Larry, I would. And that's what I want to do. We don't have to have a sea change in Rochester and all of a sudden make it a different city. Not required. What we have to do is give them a little bit more opportunity. Get more small business, as you said perfectly, more small business to open up in Rochester, more opportunities for families to grow. And, we have to save Main Street, right? We don't want so many, and that was the one thing I noticed in many cities, particularly in upstate. It's happening in New York City also, but it's more obvious in upstate, is that in Main Street, half of the storefronts are empty. And if it's not literally a strip mall with a bunch of, chain stores in it, you struggle often. Half the stores in Main Street are empty. We have to make that better. We want people to be happy for those who live outside of Rochester, to come on into Main Street and walk up and down Main Street and buy some stuff and see some stuff and spend their $10 getting what they want. We do want that. And we also want to make sure that the people want to live there, that they want to live and commute in, that some people, look, particularly the youngsters, a lot of young people want to live in a bustling city. I get that, and let's make that happen. And if you want to raise your family, maybe you raise it in Rochester, maybe not, but we want opportunity, and the key is that opportunity. The thing that I heard more than anything, which you don't hear as much in New York City, is the idea of so many people leaving the state. So many people tell me, no, I'm leaving, I don't want to be here, or my family left, my son left, my daughter left, my cousin left. So many people talk about people leaving the state. We're losing about 100,000 every year. You don't notice it in New York City because New York City is a transient city anyway, right? In New York City, 30% of people in New York City aren't born in the country. Another 30% aren't born in the city. So it's not so noticeable in New York City. Mm-hmm. It's much more noticeable when you go upstate.
Right. I've been in Rochester for a little over 20 years, and I've watched the population drop by 50%. In half.
I mean, a lot of that was Kodak.
Well, I can remember when there were traffic jams during rush hour. And now they're pretty much non-existent.
Well, that sounds like a benefit.
Right, I understand, but that just goes to show you how many people used to be on the road here,
Oh, thank goodness all these people left.
That big traffic is a problem I want to have. I want to have to fix that problem. A lot of traffic is a good problem that we have to fix. if I have a choice of fixing a traffic problem, or if I have a choice of fixing a jobs problem, I'll take a traffic problem every day of the week.
Oh, a traffic problem is a sign of a booming economy. You know, it means people are working. People have cars. People can buy gas. You know, it's a good sign, to be honest with you. Not if you're stuck in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel that way at the time.
But that's what gets me through traffic. You know, and Larry, I'm from Long Island. I was born in Queens, so I mean, I grew up in Whitestone.
There we go.
And out on the island in Long Island, and
absolutely.
And oh my, I just, you know, one of the things, you know, people keep saying, oh, you know, Sean, when are you planning on moving back to Long Island? And I'm like, when are you planning on getting rid of like about 5 million people? You know, it's just it's
too crowded for you, huh?
It's too crowded. It's too expensive, too crowded, too much of a rat race.
Absolutely.
Family members, you know, that haven't seen me in a while look at me and go, "Oh my God, you haven't aged a day." And I'm looking at them going, "When did you turn 80? You know, you were supposed to be younger than me." You know, they look horrible.
Well, look, one of the reasons why people are downstate is because there's a lot of money here.
Oh, there's crazy money.
There's also a lot of hope. And I know it may sound crazy that there's hope in New York City. It's true. In the big city, people go to the big city. I'm going to go up there, and I'm going to be the next Bill Gates. I'm going to be the next, you know, super banker. I'm going to be the next cool person, whatever the case may be. I'm going to make my mark.
I just want to.
And I need cities to be that hope, that beacon, particularly for the young, but also for people just changing their career. Right? You're 30 or 40 and deciding, I don't want to be X anymore. I want to be Y. A city could be a great place for you to kind of reboot and restart your career. Absolutely. I love those ideas. They're awesome. But the problem is it can't just be a one-in-a-million hope in New York City.
Yeah, how do we bring that here?
It should be a hope for every big city. We should have it in Rochester, and Buffalo, and Syracuse, and Albany, and in New York City, too. All the cities should be that beacon for people who want to make a massive change, of course.
I feel that Rochester is a prime location, you know, for... You know, being within New York State, so I mean, I'm talking about countrywide. We are a prime location for experimental job growth initiatives, I feel.
I completely agree, and people have asked me, what are you going to do for like kind of Rochester, Syracuse area? And I've talked often about the idea of a new Erie Canal, not just fixing the old Erie Canal, which would be a great idea also. $100 million to run, and we make less than $5 million on it every year, and it's not getting any better. But besides just fixing the actual Erie Canal, in addition, let's try to get a new Erie Canal, a new Google Road, or something like that, whatever that cool new thing is with driverless cars, driverless buses. Now, of course, the most important piece is we don't want taxpayers to pay it. We don't want that to happen. The problem is we've had the idea that the answer is always taxpayer money being poured into some idea that no one cares about, and then we hope that all of a sudden it will make money magically. We have to stop that. The idea is the governor should be facilitating and talking about and become the marketer-in-chief for the new Erie Canal. That new Erie Canal should begin between Rochester and Syracuse. There should be some kind of new cool road. Now, people say, Larry, what's that road? I don't know, and I don't have to know. I can't know. I'm not a transportation or road expert, and I don't need to be. What I need to find is when I start talking about it and saying, look at what we need. Let's create that Silicon Valley East. We have the colleges. We have the universities. We have the people. And you know what? If you put a Google Road that has driverless cars, that has electricity going through it, the snow will melt. What an awesome idea. Imagine where it is now. You can go to those two cities. You can either take the actual Erie Canal, you can take the interstate, or you can take a Google Road with a driverless bus. Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah. If I talk about that, whatever is actually feasible, companies will look and go, wait a minute, you know what, we could do that. Will the governor help us break through all the red tape and 95 regulatory bodies that are going to tell us no? Yes, Governor Sharpe will. He will break through all of that crap that has no actual value, that is just cover your butt and slow everything down and make it so expensive that no one can be innovative. Governor Sharpe will crack through all of that and let you go build your road and not ask for one taxpayer dollar to do it. Beautiful. That's the critical difference. Yeah, you do that, part. They will come here. If these companies come here, guess what? Youngsters will come here who want to be involved in cool things. New York needs to be innovative. It needs to be a place where people say, cool stuff's happening, let's go there. People often believe that for New York City, and that's why New York City keeps getting people coming to it. But now people think it's happening in the San Francisco area. That's why they're running there instead. That's why finance is running there instead.
Yeah.
We need to make that corridor between Syracuse and Rochester to be that Silicon Valley East, where cool things are happening. So people want to go there. So that colleges now will be able to, if you fill the colleges up and then take the Board of Regents and pull all the teeth out of them and stop allowing them to decide, what's taught or what is an actual class or what's an actual degree, and just pull the teeth out of them and let the colleges teach whatever's required. Someone's got to teach whatever Google Road technology is.
Yeah.
Someone's got to teach how to fix that bus or whatever that thing is, whatever they make. Someone's got to do that, and it's going to be exciting. There's going to be an app on how when your bus is coming or when your taxi's coming or whatever it is. Someone's got to figure out how to make the buses go back and forth and what makes the most sense and how does it compete effectively with the interstate and how not and how do we finance this thing. All those things.
Right. And the important part, too, is you don't necessarily need to know the answers to all that. You don't need to know that there's going to be an app. You don't need to know, exactly, who's going to build it or how they're going to build it. You just need to facilitate that. And I think that's...
And this is the point of leadership. This is post-industrial leadership. We've been taught back from the factory days that the best leader has exactly the perfect plan, who knows where every single person is going to be at every single second of the day. That's resources, management, of planning. That's not what I require anymore. What I need is people's innovation. Things change every 5 years tremendously. Whatever was right and correct 5 years ago is no longer correct because technology has changed that. Good leaders now know the idea is getting the right people in the right spot to have them move and shift and have buy-in, autonomy. That is what makes a company move forward. That's what makes an environment move forward. That's what makes a government move forward. That's what makes a state move forward. And people aren't getting it. How in the world could I be the expert in everything? No, but I need to be responsible for it. I need to know who's doing the right things and then make things happen. But there's a second part to our world which we haven't accepted, and that is we are now a sharing world. People share information. Kids share homework. People share in the business world. We're always sharing open source. This is happening all over the world, and we're still trying to say that Albany knows everything. No. Open source, allow people to come in, put that Google Road in. When they put that Google Road in, then they'll figure out what the next step is, and they'll put the next road in, and the next road in, and the next road in. And before you know it, we're going to figure out what's right and what's wrong. We're going to go from Buffalo to Syracuse, to Rochester, to Albany, to Utica, to New York City, and all the way out to Long Island, wherever else the Google Road takes us. Again, I don't have to decide where that goes. The market will.
Yeah,
the
companies
consumer
want to build
will.
it.
The companies will.
There's
because
demand.
they'll have to make money. They will not be beholden to, I've got a check for $40 million that the government says is correct, and you'll do what we say. It'll be what will make money, what will incite people, what will excite them to want to show up. And I know the answer always is, but Larry, if we do that, we'll have failures. We have failures now, and lots of them.
Yep.
The state is failing en masse. How do I know that? 100,000 of us are leaving every year. The evidence is in. The jury is in. We know what the results are. It's failing. If I have small failures throughout the state, I'm okay with that. We'll deal with it. We'll fix those because we have learned in other areas of the state, and we'll share our successes. This is not a zero-sum game. This is a sharing economy. This is a sharing world. Those who succeed will show others. But more importantly, what works in Binghamton may not work in Albany. What works in New York State may not work, in some other state. What works in New York City may not work in Westchester. We want to make sure that each local area is able to find the right answers and share their information to have everyone begin to grow. Success is not because I think I know everything. Success is because we share information and we find the right answers for our local communities.
That's one of the things I like about you, Larry, is that you don't proclaim to say, oh, I've got all the answers, but you say, I have ideas that I'm interested in trying. And that's, I think, a big
and letting
difference.
other people try their ideas.
Yeah, and let other people. And you're asking for other people
Yeah.
to put in their 2 cents to kind of say, hey, look, you know what's best for this area better than I do. I'm not from here. And you're willing to hand that issue off, and
we just got to change the government culture around that, though.
Right.
As we were talking about earlier, it's like people expect the governor to know everything. They expect the president to know everything. You got to have all the answers and all the plans, and that's what we expect government to do, right? Is just to show us the solution and make it happen. Always.
Yes, and this is a real problem here. It's as I talk about often, we are really the tip of the spear here. We are the vanguard. We are the brand new people who are trying to change how government works. Again, we don't need government to be an enforcer. We need to be a facilitator. We don't need government to say, I know everything. We need the government to say, let me just protect the rights of the individual to ensure that no one's being hurt. That's all I want. I want to make sure the government is people assume, well, if you let things go, then everyone's going to die. Look, if people hurt other people, that's still a crime, and the government should enforce that. I don't want people hurting, stealing, robbing. I don't want fraud. I don't want murder. Of course not. Those laws don't go away. Of course they stay. Of course they should. Not only will I give away a lot, meaning the ability to do, but one thing I will not do is remove responsibility. This is a piece I want to make sure is clear. What we're lacking heavily in New York is responsibility. We have all these panels and authorities and committees who have appointees by who knows who have no recourse, who no one is responsible to or for, who supposedly this happens because we want it to be fair. But what winds up happening when we have all these authorities and all these committees and all these panels is no one's in charge. So no one's responsibility to say yes. It's only a person's responsibility to see, is it good enough? It's not? No. That's their job, to say no or to help out their cronies. This is literally a petri dish for cronyism. It is the way corruption grows, the farm for corruption. Instead, someone has to be in charge, responsible. Responsible doesn't mean I have to have every answer. It means I have to make sure it's working. I have to make sure it's not corrupt. Someone's responsible. Every single one of these panels and authorities, to include the MTA, to include the Board of Regents, all of these things, which is kind of run by the governor, but kind of run by the state, but kind of run by this. No, it should be under one arm, one branch of the government, whether that's the Chief Justice, whether that's the governor, whether that's the Assembly. It's under one individual who I say, why isn't this being done? Why isn't it working? Someone has to be responsible. Right now we have the rule of no one, which is why you're always jumping through hoops to get anything done.
And the buck
and
stops
it's why
nowhere.
Anyone who's ever started a business knows you never know what law or rule you're breaking. It's impossible to know because there's 9 different authorities that decide what you're doing or what you should be doing, or worse, what you shouldn't be doing. There are people deciding what temperature your meat should be when you pull it out of the freezer if you're a restaurant owner. I know stories of people who, when the health inspector comes in, they just throw all the food in the garbage because it's cheaper to rebuy the food than to pay the fines. And to be clear, this restaurant, in this case, has zero, and I mean zero, history of hurting anybody.
Yeah, I was going to ask. People are gonna yell at you about safety again, Larry. That's what's going to happen. Is they go, oh, he wants to remove all food safety regulations. He's saying that people should be allowed to get sick. That's
what I'm saying is, if you make someone sick, that's still a problem. That's still a crime. That's still an issue. You should be punished for making someone sick. I get that. It doesn't go away. If you think the punishment works, then we can make stricter punishments if you think that's the answer. In theory, I'm okay with that concept if you think it's true. I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is deciding that I, in Albany, know how to, run a pizza joint. I don't. Neither does any bureaucrat or braid hair or whatever. What the hell does Albany know, some bureaucrat in Albany know about a woman's hair to be braided in, I don't know, in Harlem? How do they know?
They'll form a committee, Larry.
Outskirts of Honey Falls, some farmland. How does some guy or gal in Albany know what they should do? How would they know?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Don't hurt people. Don't do things that are obviously wrong. Those laws are on the books. If you want to strengthen those laws, I'm in. I do not have a problem at all with the government stepping in and dealing with people who create some form of victim. If there is a victim, there is a crime, government may step in. If there is no victim, there's no crime. Why is government stepping in?
I totally agree, and I feel that we should take that even one step further, Larry, and say that if you're not hurting people and you're not hurting the environment.
Yes, agreed. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's part.
Absolutely.
If you're hurting the environment, there's an externality. There's a victim involved, right?
Correct.
So that's
correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, there's a victim. Yes, that's correct.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's the whole point.
I mean, there
is a victim.
Yeah. We get that a lot as libertarians, right? It's like, oh, you guys don't care about the environment. No, there's an economic term for it, and an externality. It's a cost that's imposed on others when there's pollution involved, there's environmental damage involved. Like, yeah, we care about that. There's a victim. There's a crime, right? That's
absolutely, no question, 100%.
Yeah,
absolutely true.
When I see Trump allowing coal companies to dump their sludge waste into creeks, I mean, that's just
the EPA allowing it.
Wow. I mean, that just goes beyond words.
Yeah, I mean, there's an issue here. The problem is we have, and it's very common, you'll see, it's what I call 0 to 100 thinking. Everything is either, oh, so you want us all to die, or the EPA is our only answer and should rule the world.
Yeah,
those are two broad-based 0 or 100 ideas that aren't true. There is something in the middle where government can be there to say, if you hurt someone, we're going to punish you. Don't hurt someone. Without saying, I need to say how many screws need to be in this piece of plywood, right? I don't need that to be the answer. And the EPA doesn't have to own and decide everything. But can it say, if you hurt someone, you pay? Yes, there is a middle ground. The problem is we have fear, and this is a cultural issue. The fear is, if not government, there is nothing. It is very hard for people to understand that there can actually be something without government. And this is my idea that I talk about all the time, difference between regulations and standards. Regulations have actual teeth and will punish you. Standards don't have to, but they're actually more effective. An example, again, people think I'm crazy, but this happens all the time. I use this example often. If you happen to look on many products, food products, water, sometimes soda, food products, you will often see a small circle U on that product on the label. And that circle U is a stamp from the Orthodox Union. And it is a Jewish group that certifies this thing is kosher. Now, if you don't care about a kosher household, you don't notice, you don't care, whatever, all good. If you care about a kosher household, and I live in New York City, so there's a large Jewish community here, so I know lots of people who have kosher households. They care. They will buy products that have that circle U on it. And you might say, well, wait a minute, Larry, does the government check that? No, not at all. That is an industry standard that these groups, and there are more than one group like that, who certify things kosher. So what happens? Some people want that. Some people don't. It's okay. Have it out there and have standards. There are actually multiple kosher standards. Some people may want the Orthodox Union. Some people may want something else. Some may only want the Orthodox Union. Some may want multiple. And each consumer decides what they want for their food product. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you might say, but Larry, what about things that might kill you? That's happening too. That's happening, as I said before, in health food stores. Lots of health food stores have tons of products that do not have any FDA approval, but they have some industry standard. This is by the industry standard X or industry standard Y. Some people care about those standards. Some don't. Some want multiple standards. All good. The advantage of standards is the industry standards will actually change with the industry. Regulations will only change after someone's hurt. And then the regulations after someone's hurt will only add more regulations, will not remove anything. Industry standards will adjust and shift depending upon technology, new ideas, new information, and all regulations that don't matter, standards that don't matter will go away, and those that do matter will be added. But not just that. If we have more standards and not regulations, standards can compete against each other. I would like that. I would like to have 2 or 3 or 4 competing standards for food, for safety, for machinery, for the environment, so that each company can have its own stamp. And now when some fracking company wants to come into some town and start fracking, the town can say, what standards do you sit by? What do you agree with? What stamp do you have? Oh, we have no. Well, we don't want you. Oh, well, we have these 3. We respect these 3. You can come in. That's what I want. I want standards. Standards actually make us safer. How do I know that? Look at the health food industry. Health food stores, the industry. Do we have massive deaths? No. Massive injuries? No. When you're watching TV in the afternoon or in the morning and Maury and Jerry Springer on, I don't know if Jerry Springer's still on TV anymore, but if you watch the morning TV, what do you always see? If you've been injured by this drug, this FDA-approved drug, if you've had damage by this FDA-approved drug, far more people have been hurt and killed by FDA-approved drugs than anything in a health food store ever, all combined.
Happens. And it gives you a false sense of security, too.
Yes, it does. It makes you think, oh, it's FDA-approved, it's fine.
Yeah.
Not just that, all of our drug problem, 80% of all of our drug addicts, where'd they get their addiction from? Prescription drugs, approved by the FDA.
Yep.
Yeah, the FDA is not our friend. It has hurt more Americans than any non-FDA-approved thing ever, all combined. It's not even funny. It's embarrassing how bad it is. But what if we instead had a bunch of competing standards? Let the FDA still exist. That's okay. But the FDA can exist, but the FDA does not stop anyone from anything. It simply exists as another standard. And if you believe in the FDA, then only buy stuff that has an FDA sticker. If you don't, then don't.
I'll do it with like electronics, like the little UL that you see on the back of plugs and stuff, like the Underwriters Laboratories. Like, I'll look at that. I'm like, oh, okay, so this has probably been tested. You buy some of those like really cheap electronics off of Amazon. They don't have that, and I'm like, oh, okay, is that?
Yes.
Maybe this is a product I shouldn't trust.
Mm-hmm.
This is already being done. It's not crazy.
It happens.
Well, I mean, like
and that's exactly my point.
Years ago, Consumer Reports could make or break a product, and now we have the internet, so we have all these reviews coming from all different people, and I think that products would either, stay or go based on that. But I want to shift gears with you a little bit because you brought up something, and I want to get your take on it before we run out of time here. But yeah, we got a serious opioid addiction issue here, especially here in Rochester. What's your take on that, Larry?
Yeah, the answer, without question, is to end the war on drugs. And I know it seems counterintuitive, but again, the data is in, the answer is here already. You look at countries like Switzerland, Portugal, Norway, they were trying their best to fix these problems. Portugal is probably the best example, and the example is, let's just decriminalize everything. That's theirs, right? Mm-hmm. We probably want to go with marijuana first. I don't think the state is ready for a full decriminalization yet. Right. We're going to start right away with marijuana. What happens? When you begin to decriminalize, the first thing that happens is overdoses go down. In Portugal, about 66% all of a sudden reduction. In America, over 100 Americans die of an overdose every day. Now, more than car accidents.
Yep.
So it's somewhere between 120 and 150 people die every day. Let's go 120. That would mean 80 Americans live today, just today, every day, with a chance for success. The issue when it comes to war on drugs is if we start to decriminalize, several things happen. Number one, if marijuana becomes legal, now, first off, farmers can grow it. Good. Another cash crop for New York. We've already lost it to Colorado, Washington, and California. Let's hope we have a shot at getting some of that revenue, some of that business here in New York still. I hope we can.
Yeah. And let's not forget
But not just that. People will start using marijuana as a pain medication instead of opioids. Marijuana is far, far, far less addictive, far, far, far safer. It's not even close, and far cheaper. So it's cheaper, safer, less addictive. Why wouldn't we be using marijuana? It doesn't have to just be smoking. It could be edibles or whatever is your thing, right? It doesn't really matter, right? But you can use it for pain medication, which is what most people have used opioids for and what's addicted them. So right there, you would immediately stop overdosing and have less addicts immediately. Next, once that drug becomes more common and more accepted, people won't hide. People will be open about it. People will be able to talk about it. The problem we also have is once people get addicted, they're ashamed. They're embarrassed. They tell no one. They're afraid to go to jail. They tell no one. So when you need your loved ones more than ever, you don't have them, right? That's the most important piece. The next piece, when people are addicted, they become unhappy. Our biggest problem in New York State is an overall problem that happens in the country, but in New York State it's obvious. We have a lot of unhappy people. If people are unhappy, they tend to do bad things to themselves and to others.
Right.
So we want to stop that idea of you're evil because you're an addict. No, you have a problem.
Yeah, people
you have a
self-medicate.
problem, a medical problem that we need to try to treat and fix. We should look at addiction not as a criminal problem. It's not. Again, the criminal element behind the drug problem is a symptom. It's a symptom of illegal drugs. We fix the illegal drug problem we then fix the symptom. You probably heard me talk about this often. I'm not about, attacking the branch. I want to attack the root. We often think there's a problem when it actually is a problem. It's a symptom. If we fix the underlying problem, the symptom goes away.
Yeah. Exactly. So you get right to it. I mean, I want to hit on one of the points you had, like using like cannabis products as a medical, as a substitute for opioids. I mean, we do have legal medical marijuana in New York State, right? Like, is that not enough? Yeah. Well, why not?
Not really.
Yeah.
Well, because the rules and regulations on it are so bad, it's actually cheaper just to get it illegally.
Yeah.
That's my point. I don't assume, and this goes right to my point. The assumption is we have to control that somehow from Albany. Why? Why? Let people grow marijuana or sell marijuana in the open market, and what will happen? Consumers will decide what works and what doesn't work. Consumers will decide what's the right answer and what's not. Consumers will decide, should it be edible? Should it be marijuana cigarettes? What should it be? Mm-hmm. There's no need at all for Albany to sit there except to say, look, you need to be transparent. What is in your product must be transparent. I don't want to create the monster we had with the cigarettes, back in the day when they could put whatever they want in the cigarettes and not tell everybody. No, if you're going to sell marijuana, you must be transparent. People must know what's in the product like any other product. Why in the world do we have to regulate? We make it to where there's still a black market. It is cheaper to literally go on an app. I'm not making this up. Press an app, and someone will take a bicycle in New York City and deliver marijuana to you on a bicycle. It's cheaper than getting it legally.
That's entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
That's
yes.
Well, people do that up here with cigarettes too, and I'm sure they do it down there too. Is like people go out to the reservations and they'll buy like a boatload of cigarettes and they'll sell those on the black market because of the number of regulations we put on that too, which is fascinating. Well, yes. Regulations and taxes.
Yes. So what winds up happening is now because they've lost so much money to that, they then raise taxes more.
Yep.
So they raise taxes more. So what have you just done? You've just punished law-abiding citizens.
Right.
So those who follow the rules get punished, and those who don't succeed. You're asking people to go on the black market. Yet again, you are training people to be corrupt. You are training people to go into the black market. Why in the world we do this? It's like the beatings will continue until morale improves. Yeah. That's not how it should work and doesn't work. And we haven't learned. And we have to change that culture.
It's almost like people paid no attention to Prohibition. It's like that, that never really happened. Those 10 years, that never really happened.
It worked out great, right?
Yeah, everything was fine,
Yes, exactly. I mean, we've seen this happen before. You want to have less police officers die? I have an idea. End the war on drugs.
Right.
We
actually.
How about that?
We spoke with a police officer up here in Rochester once that I happened to bump into, and we got to talking, and he had been in the force for like 40 years, and for like the last 25, he was training the police officers. So, and I don't want to use his name, but yeah. He was said straight out. He said the war on drugs is a failure. They don't even bother with any of the marijuana offenses anymore unless it's sales. And he said, ending the war on drugs will make us all safer, both citizens and the police.
Yeah,
absolutely. It is worthless. And the funny thing is, the average cop doesn't want to enforce a lot of silly rules, right? Do you think the average cop joins because they want to, give speeding tickets? Mm-hmm. You think the average cop, wants to grab kids who have marijuana in their pocket? Of course not. I mean, I'm sure some cops don't care, but there's bad, cops as there's bad everything. There's bad truck drivers and there's bad everything. So there's always going to be your bad apples. But the average cop doesn't want to do that. The average cop wants to get bad guys. The average cop wants to be a hero. That's why they became a cop. Yeah. The average cop wants to go off and get people who are murderers and rapists and burglars. Yeah. And guess what? I'd like them doing that too.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine the cops actually stop going after petty crimes and they actually start going after the violent offenders.
Bingo.
Imagine
that. I got a feeling most cops would be happy with that. That's what they joined. They want to be doing the right thing. They want to be heroes. That's why they joined. Awesome. Let's let them.
Yeah, great. All right, so we got a little over 5 minutes left right now, and again, you're listening to Rochester Free Radio, WRFZ 106.3 FM with Larry Sharpe. And if any of the other candidates for governor want to grace us on their show, if King Andy wants to grace us, we'd be happy to have you on. That'd be a lot of fun. Or whatever Republican's running this week. But Larry,
this week, I love that. Well done.
Yeah, I'm being a bit snarky.
I heard that they can't find a Republican candidate because the Republican candidate, one of them said something to the effect of, "I don't want to be the guy known as the one that loses to the third party candidate for the first time."
Yes, and that's the big deal. You're totally correct. Look, the first guy dropped out once he saw my fundraising numbers, and the second guy dropped out once we had a conversation. So they're dropping out left and right. They know the Republicans cannot win in a statewide election. Look, the Republicans are totally viable locally. Locally, they will win. Locally, they're viable. It's statewide in 2018. They know they're not viable. They're not going to be able to win a statewide election this year. That may change in the years to come. But this year, they're done. It's not going to happen, and nobody wants to be that person who's going to lose unless someone has basically nothing to lose.
Right.
So some people have nothing to lose, and they say, fine, I'll go. But the problem is they can't raise money because who wants to give money to some guy who is not only is he going to lose, but he's going to change nothing.
Yeah.
Speaking of
if
raising
we're
money,
a third party, even if we lose, we still change everything. We change the message. We change the culture. We change the thought process of the state. Not just that, we become the referees. If a third party even gets 20, 30%, just gets on the board, what happens? People will say that party is now valuable, that party now is viable, and now that party can now be the one who says, Democrats, you're supposed to be about civil liberties. Excuse me, why aren't you? Republicans, you're supposed to be about lower taxes and less government. Why aren't you? The third party becomes the referee, and if you have a viable third party, you will actually have better Democrats and better Republicans, and not just those two tribes who sacrifice all their values just for victory.
Exactly.
So it works no matter what. And here's the best part. If a third party actually wins, when we actually win this thing in November and I become the governor, it changes the state overnight, and it changes the nation because now the third party, Libertarian Party, becomes a viable party. And all those people who are thinking, I'm kind of libertarian, but I don't know if I should really be one or not, they will come out of the woodwork and they will become that. And we will have a freer society, a more open society, and a safer society.
I completely agree with you, Larry. Hey, Larry, if people like what they've heard you talking about today, where can they go and donate?
LarrySharpe.com. Larry Sharpe with an E. E makes it special. Or you can go to the Facebook page, Larry Sharpe for New York, Twitter, Larry Sharpe, Instagram, Larry Sharpe. Yes, I have all the names.
All right. Nice.
Awesome.
All right. So Larry Sharpe, Sharpe with an E. The E makes it special. LarrySharpe.com or the Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Great.
Yes. E also can stand for electable.
Hey, I like that.
All good.
Awesome, Larry. Hey, Larry, one last question for you. I know from the last election that there was this whole culture of like, I want to vote for the winner.
Yep.
I don't want to vote for the.
I don't want to waste my vote.
Yeah, I don't want to waste my vote. What do you got to say to those people?
Yeah, then don't vote Republican or Democrat.
That's what I've been saying.
I'm with you, yes, because the Republican cannot win in a statewide election this year, and the Democrat is the status quo. That's not a win. If you like the last 7 years of decay, then vote for that. That's your win. If you don't like the last 7 years of decay, if you don't want a current governor who's just going to use us so he can run for president next year, if you don't want that, you've got to vote for someone else. The Republican is not going to win. Only person left, Larry Sharpe, Libertarian, the guy who's raised more money than all the Republicans combined, the guy who's traveling the state now, the guy who people are noticing, the guy who actually is the vanguard of what a new New York can be. If you want a new New York, if you want to save Main Street, if you want your vote to matter to change New York, you've got to vote Larry Sharpe in 2018.
Larry, let me give you a little something, that you might want to be able to use here. You got to go out and tell people, we're done. We're fed up with the status quo.
The status quo, yes. We have to end the status quo.
Fantastic. Yeah. And Larry, I know you're going to be back in the Rochester area eventually. When are you going to be back again? Do you know?
Eventually. That sounded terrible.
So, well, soon. I mean, you're traveling throughout the state.
Yes, yeah. I'm actually going to be in Binghamton and Buffalo next week.
Great.
I'm heading up there next week to be in those two cities. And then I'm actually heading up to Oneonta and Syracuse and also Rochester, April 4th through April 9th.
Okay.
So about a little less than a month from now, I'll be heading up into that area. So I'm doing kind of far western New York, like kind of more of a Buffalo coming up here, and on the way up doing Binghamton, and then in a couple weeks after that, I'm heading back up doing Oneonta, Syracuse, and Rochester, all three.
Wow, full campaign swing. So you are visiting up here. You're not ignoring upstate. You're very engaged with what's going on.
Absolutely, and then I'm back in Rochester again May 6th.
Great.
Nice.
So yes, I am traveling the state. I have at least 10 trips scheduled to be spending several days up in upstate, and of course, I'm also spending time downstate too, Long Island, Westchester. I'm going to Westchester next weekend, so I'll be in Westchester also. So I'm trying to cover the entire state. It's easier for me being from Queens to do New York City. That's easier for me, but it doesn't matter. I need to worry about the entire state. I've got to be Albany. I've got to be Buffalo, Rochester, the North Country, everywhere.
And all those Republicans down in Long Island, they need to hear you.
Long Island too, absolutely.
Everyone.
Suffolk County, Nassau County, absolutely. I've got to be everywhere, and it's hard and it's challenging. But look, I'm doing it. And the other thing to remember is I'm doing that, and I don't have a job. I have my own company. I'm a consultant. I run my own business. So as I'm doing this, I'm just losing money.
Yeah.
I'm doing this, and I'm taking a massive hit to my income to do this. Last year, I lost about 50% of my income, and this year I'll lose about 75% of my income. That's not awesome. That hurts because I'm campaigning 3 to 4 days a week. It's a lot.
Larry,
but I'm okay. I'll bleed.
Thanks, Larry. We're running out of time, but thank you so much. Larry Sharpe, Libertarian Candidate for Governor. LarrySharpe.com, Sharpe with an E. Thank you so much, Larry, for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Please come back.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Again, you listen to Outside the Echo Chamber on Rochester Free Radio. Join us next week at 9 a.m. We will see you next Saturday. Thanks again for joining us today.